Alright, welcome back, Codex. Today we're working on our first Photoshop project, PS01. It's an introduction to Photoshop. Photoshop is a image manipulation software that is somewhat the gold standard for creating any kind of imagery that is just a 2D flat image. So today we're going to create a letter-sized document. We're going to add an image into that document. We're going to copy and paste it from the internet. After that, we're going to add a text layer to add some text on top of it. After that, we're going to choose what color we want to make that text. Then we're going to add one more layer, which is adding a shape. We'll be able to choose the color of that shape. We'll be able to add a stroke around the shape, which is basically a line around the outside of the shape. And then we're going to save our shape or our whole document as a JPEG, which is just one flattened down document, and a PSD, which is a multi-layered document. After you're done with that, we'll be submitting it to Schoology. Oh, okay, hold on one second. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now? Adair, can you hear me now? Alright, perfect. If you want to be able to hear what I'm saying as you're going along, you can just put on your headphones and you should be able to hear me through there now. Let's walk through this whole process. So first, we've opened up Photoshop. To open up Photoshop, all you have to do is click down here on your Start menu and type in FHO, and you'll see Photoshop in there. You can click on Photoshop, and it should open up a window that looks something like this. Once you have Photoshop open, we can create a new document by going up to File on the top, and then going to New. When we create a new document, you're going to see this menu open up. We're going to create a print size document, so we're going to go to the Print menu up here, and then we're going to choose a letter size document. This is basically one of the something that you could print out of a regular printer sized piece of paper, an 8.5 by 11 inch size piece of paper. You can name your document right over here where it says Untitled 1. I'm going to call this PS01. Alright, so now I'm all set with my new document. I'm going to press Create, and it should create a nice paper-sized document here. Oftentimes in this class, we're going to use a template that uses some rulers, and we're going to have different guidelines that we can draw with those rulers. If you click on View, you can go to View, and then Rulers, or Control R, and that will show these rulers that show up on the top and the left-hand side of your window here. So you should see some rulers up here. We're going to make our rulers work in a percentage basis. You can make them work on inches or centimeters or anything like that. I'm going to right click on this and go to percent, and now this is all measured in percentage. So if I click on my ruler here, I can hold down the mouse button and drag down, and you'll see it'll draw a line for me to be able to create a ruler guideline. I'm going to drag it down to the 50% mark, as you can see here. And I'm going to take one from the left-hand side and drag it in the middle as well. There we go. I have two guidelines, and I'm all set to begin working on a project. Now, our PS01 project, we have to have an image that's going to be put on top of this piece of paper. To do that, I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to go to Chrome here. And I'm going to search for an image. The image can be anything that you like, as long as it's school appropriate, that is. So I'm going to search for something nice. Alright, now I'm going to search for an image here on Google. Here we go. I've got a nice picture here. It's a GIF. Let's see if I can find another one here. That's a pretty good dance there. Here we go. This is what I want right here. So I'm going to take this image, and I'm going to go to Copy Image right here. I'm going to right-click on the image that I find here in Google Images first. I'm going to left-click to make a bigger image here, and then I'll right-click on it and go to Copy Image. Now if I go into Photoshop, I can press Control-V to be able to paste that image into Photoshop. You'll notice that I took a moving image, a GIF image. If you copy a GIF image and you put it into Photoshop, it will not make it move anymore. It's just going to take a still frame. Now, if I want to move around this image, I have to use the Move tool, which is up here on the top left. If you zoom in, you'll see that there's a what looks like a little cross made out of arrows. This is your Move tool. And after you use the Move tool, you want to click on the Show Transform Controls right here. You'll see something that has a little check mark box and says Show Transform Controls. If you click on this, then it will make your image have these little boxes that show up around it. This will allow you to stretch the image by clicking and dragging it. Now there's one important thing about this, and that is after you have stretched out your image, you're going to notice that it's all blocked out and pixelated like this. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to double click on the image or click on this little check mark box up on the top right, and it should make your image look more clear, and it will finalize your transformation of making it bigger. So I press this check mark, and bam, my image looks better. Alright. So I've got my image ready. Now I'm going to put a text box on top of this image. You'll notice down here on the bottom right that there's a new layer on top of your background, and it should be the image that you just created. A good thing to do is to rename each one of your layers. So I'm going to double click on the name right here where it says Layer 1. If I double click on that name, I can change what it's called. So I'm going to call this Reaper Dance. There we go. So now I have my main image ready. I'm going to add a text image or a text layer to this image. To do that, I'm going to go over here on the left-hand side, and you're going to see something that looks like a capital T. I'm going to click on that capital T. And now I can click and type something if I want. But before I do, I want to change what color my text is going to be. In order to change your color, you can choose a color over here on the right-hand side. You're going to see this rainbow where you can select a color to use. If you click on a color, then you can change what color you're going to type in. Another way to do this is up here on the top right, there's a little box full of color, and that is the color of your current text. So I'm going to click on that, and you're going to see something very similar to what you see on the right up there, where you can choose your color. Up here, you can choose whatever color you want. If you want to choose a color that is based off of the picture itself, once you click on this box up here in the top right, you can click anywhere in your image and it will pick that color for you to use as your text. So I'm going to click on this image right here. I'm going to pick a color right off of my picture and press OK. And now when I type, you're going to see that it will be in that color. Alright, perfect. After I have my stuff typed out, if I want to finalize my text and make it to where I can move it around, I can click on this check mark, or I can press Enter on my keypad, and it will finalize it. You'll see that the text layer no longer is underlined. That means that it's done being created. Your layer, your text layer, is going to be called whatever the words are in the text itself. Now if I want to move this around, I can click back on that Move tool up here on the top left, and you'll see that I can move around my text layer, and I can resize it however I want. I can stretch it out like that. Perfect. Something to note is that the center part of your text layer is going to have those little square boxes once you have the transform tool activated. So I can basically put them perfectly centered in my picture very easily just by making sure that those two squares are lined up to my guidelines that are perfectly in the center of my document. So now I know that this is perfectly centered. Awesome. Once I'm done, I can press the check box, or I can double click on the image itself on the inside of this, and it should finalize my transformation. Alright, the last thing that I want to do is I want to add a shape to this document. To add a shape, if you go over to the left hand side in your tools over here, you're going to see in between the black arrow and the hand, you're going to see probably a rectangle like this. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on that rectangle and hold down the mouse button, and you'll see a whole bunch of other options come up. A rectangle tool, a rounded rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, a line. The one that we're going to use is the custom shape tool. So I'm clicking on the custom shape tool, and now you'll see that this top menu up here has a few new options. The first thing that I want to do is I want to change this into an actual shape. To do that, up here where it says path, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change it to shape. When I do that, you're going to see that now there's a fill color, which is going to be the color that my shape will look like. There's a stroke, which is basically a line that will be drawn around the outside of my shape. I can choose what that line would look like. I can make it a dotted line or a straight line. And lastly, up here on the top right, you can change what kind of shape you want it to look like. If you haven't used this tool before, you're going to want to click on the little gear. After you click on this shape menu option here, you're going to want to click on this gear, and you're going to want to make it to where you display all of the shapes. Otherwise, it's just going to show you a small percentage of all the shapes that are available. So I'm going to click on all right here, and then I press OK. And now if I look at my shapes, I have a nice, huge amount of shapes to choose from. I'm just going to choose one that I like. Let's see. I'm going to grab this star right here, and I'm just going to put a star back here. If I drag it out and then let go, you'll notice that the star now has a color put on the inside, and that color is whatever I choose my fill to be. After I draw the shape, I can still change what the color will be very easily. So I'm just going to make it gold like that. That looks pretty good. If I want to add a stroke, I can click on this stroke menu option right here, and I can choose what color I want my stroke to be. I'm going to make it a purple. There we go. Now the last thing is right here next to stroke where it says 1px, that's how thick your stroke will be. So if I click on this little arrow next to it, I can drag this slider out, and you'll see that it makes that line around the outside of my shape a little bit bigger. You can make it bigger or smaller using this stroke slider right here. That's pretty good right there. Alright. Now that I'm all done and I have my shape, it looks pretty good. But I want to move it. I don't like where it is. So to move it, of course, I'm going to use my Move tool. I'm going to click up here on Move, and you'll see those familiar transform controls to where I can resize my shape however I want. Also, something interesting about the Move tool, if you hover your mouse just outside of where these squares are, you'll see that your cursor becomes a little bent arrow like that. What that means is you can actually click and drag, and you can rotate an object around and move it how you like. So if you had a shape like an arrow or something, you would be able to move the arrow to point at whatever you want by using the rotation tool with your Move tool. So you click on Move, you click on what you want to move, and then you just hover outside of where those little squares are on the corners, and you'll be able to rotate the object. Alright. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. If I want to go back to change the stroke, I can go into my custom shape tool, and I can go in and change it after the fact. I want to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. That works. Alright, so now I have all of my layers. I have my shape layer, I have my dance text layer, and I have my image layer down on the bottom. I'm all ready to save this and submit it to Schoology. First thing I have to do is go up to File, and then go to Save As. And I'm going to save this as PS01. And I'll specify what it is. It's a Reaper dance. Now we're going to save this both as a Photoshop document and as a JPEG, because a Photoshop document will save all of our layer information. And you can actually see down here that when you try to save it as a Photoshop, under Save Options, there's a Layers check mark, which basically tells you that it's saving all of these little layers that I made, so I can change them. If I want to go back and change something later, I can do that. Like I can make a poster, and then I can reuse the same poster, but just change the dates or the name on top of it. It makes things very helpful. So I'm going to save this as a PSD. When you try to save it, you're going to see this menu option. Just press OK. You can even click on this Don't Show Again, because you'll always press OK. Then I'm going to go back up to File and Save As, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG instead of a Photoshop document. To do that, up here where it says Save As Type, I'll just change this to a JPEG, and then press Save. You're going to see this menu option pop up. You just want this slider right here to be all the way to the right to make it the largest possible file. After you do that, you press OK, and now you have your documents ready to submit to Schoology under the Photoshop Documents section in our Projects folder. So if we go to our Schoology page, you're going to see in the Projects folder, you're going to see Photoshop Image Manipulation, and you should see PS01, Layers, Text, and Shape. We're going to take this and submit to this document. Make sure that you submit both the JPEG and the PSD, otherwise you won't get full credit. You'll only get 20 points if you only submit one, versus 30 points if you submit both. Alright, that's everything you need to know for this assignment. I hope you have fun with it, and I will see you again and talk to you again soon.